Okay.
So, hi guys. Today we have Kristen.
Hi.
Right, Kristen. Would you just introduce yourself so that the audience know who you are?
Okay, so my name's Kristen. I'm 23 this year. And Daryl just asked me what my story was, which was a pretty intimidating question. But I pointed out, I shared with him two major life experiences for myself, and one of it is a childhood trauma, and the second one would be my experience with death. Because in comparison to a lot of people around me in my age group, death is something that is kind of foreign, and generally, I think death is something that we are averse to it because it's difficult. It feels uncomfortable, but I think one thing we have to accept that death is part of life, and maybe the more that we talk about it, not necessarily exposed to it. I think being exposed to death is something that if it comes, it comes, but it's more like maybe if we can talk about it, we can make it less comfortable, make it less uncomfortable, and the whole process of death and grieving.
This topic is something that I always have it at the back of my head, but I don't dare to talk about it.
Why do you have it at the back of your head?
Because there was once where I went to a fortune teller. I'm a huge fan of self-awareness, tarot card reading, and all these kind of funny things. So fortune reading was one of my things. So the fortune teller told me that my mom would have terminal illness. And true enough, in her womb, right, there was this thing called the polyps. So it could become cancerous and all these things. And I didn't know, that was my first time having this kind of bad news, right? I didn't know what to do. Should I tell my mom? Would that change her fate? Or should I just shut the hell up?
Oh, okay. So your mom, did the fortune teller told this before your mom knew about it? Or?
Yeah, it was before. So I might not know whether it will turn out to be true or not, right? So I don't want to scare her. But fast forward 3 months later, she came back, said that I've been bleeding unnecessarily, and yes, turned out there was an illness and there was that polyps thing. So I'm freaking out, I was like, oh shit, this guy's so accurate. And at that point of time, I tried buying insurance coverage and all these things, too late, right? And I told myself, like, oh shit, there's this creeping thought, right? What would happen if my mom leaves me? Because she's like my best friend and all these things.
Yeah.
So to the extent whereby I actually paid $5,000 for Tony Robbins' event, Date with Destiny, so that I want to get this emotional mastery. I don't crumble, I don't fall. If not, my business, my clients, my community will just fall apart alongside with me. So I cannot allow that to happen. But I really want to hear from your point of view, like how did you cope with that?
Okay. So at that point for me, okay, I guess this is my story. This is like my personal story. So at that point for me, when my mom was, very bluntly say, my mom was dying. So she was sick for about 6 months. So after 6 months, like, she left. So during those 6 months, it was I can't even put into words. Thank you for letting me share this, because I myself have not really it's not often that I get the space to share it, because not often people want to hear, they don't know how to respond, and I totally understand that. So anyways, I think literally at that point it was like, the only thing you can do is to stay strong, because right, my mom, and I think our parents also, they when they are sick, if they are sick, they wouldn't want to show that they are suffering. So my mom, right, I've never saw her cry during those 6 months of like medication and like, suffering. I never saw her cry. She never once talked about like, what if she left. My mom is that kind of person. My mom's quite stoic in that sense. And then we always knew that whenever we see her, we put on a smile to let her know that, we are okay, and that she just has to worry about herself. And in a way, everyone around, my family members and I, we were just like putting up a strong front for the sake of my mom. And my mom was also doing the same, And I would say after she passed, of course, things shift, when someone who is so pivotal in a household just leaves suddenly. It's like you feel it, but you don't know what to do with it. And I think the thing with death is that the grieving part is the part that is foreign. It is you don't know what to do with it, grieving. And I think my siblings and I and my dad, my father, we all made our own sense of like death and grieving, because there will always be a period of like grieving. And even I would say like right now there is still a bit of that grief, because you will always miss this person. But I remember reading this line in a what's his name, Mitch Albom book. Yes, in Mitch Albom's book, there was a line in his storybook that said, "Death ends a life, not a relationship."
Tuesday
So
with
I,
Maury.
hmm?
Tuesdays with Maury.
Yes, yeah, it's my favorite. I think I shared this line with you. I think I did. Yeah. Then yeah, which I think is very true. Like even though this person is gone in the physical sense, it's like they are not really gone, because they live in your hearts. The kind of things that the experiences you share with them, the things that they have taught you, like they are still alive and they live within you. So in a sense, I think in a wider perspective, I think that's how like um how humans have a lot of power in terms of like influencing each other. Humans are social creatures. We cannot function alone. Even if we want to, there's just no way we can. Which is why I think like community is so important. Finding your tribe is also important. Yeah. And I think all of it is just a compilation of like living, and death is also part of that. Yeah.
Well, that's a heavy sharing. Thank you so much for pouring your heart out.
I mean, what do you think of it? As in for yourself, if you don't mind sharing, like how is your mom now? How are things like with her as well? And how are you experiencing or making sense of what is going on?
Right. So she had the operation twice,
Mm,
same place, right? The womb again. And right now it's the third time and she's waiting for health checkup and things like that. I
mm,
kind of make sense in the sense that as long as I don't have regret, like I'm doing my best version of myself as a son,
mm,
I can live life without regret.
mm,
That's good enough. I am gonna live life living, loving her every single moment.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about that moment of detachment
The
where
moment of
I
what?
detachment
Mm,
where I did not know how to react towards her once I found out that she had the
mm,
illness.
mm.
Because on one hand, I wanted to stay strong. I
Yeah,
wanted to detach myself so strongly away from her so that one day if she's gone, I can still function.
yeah,
There's this period, I think a good 1 month, right? I did not really talk to her, did not connect with her, trying to get myself ready for if she's gone. I don't know why my mind just suddenly switched that mood around.
mm,
But knowing today what I have known back then, I would not have done that. In fact, I would be very honest and share how I feel. Be very vulnerable with her. Don't need
mm,
to put on a brave front or false
mm,
front. It
mm,
just makes things very uncomfortable for her, for
mm,
myself as well.
mm,
I'll just tell her, Mom, I'm very worried for you. If you're
mm,
worried, you're scared, let me know.
mm,
I think that would help us
mm,
in the entire relationship.
mm.
Yeah. In fact, I'm also very curious. Have you been in a relationship before?
Have I been in a relationship before? Like romantic relationship? Yeah.
Okay, great. So you have experienced breakup?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So guide us, the audience here, right? For the audience out there, I don't think most of them experience death or the departure of a loved ones. How would you describe a breakup and death?
Wow. Okay. I think really the big difference is that with death, you actually feel like you don't have control over it. I think control is something that a lot of people want, and we try to have as much control as we can. And I think I myself am trying to make sense of this idea of control, because there are certain things I can't control. Like I couldn't control my mom getting cancer and dying. I really couldn't. Um, and then I don't know, so let's just say in the context of a relationship and death, like I think the big difference is that with death, you never know. You never know, other than the fact that it is coming, because time is something that diminishes. Time is the only thing that diminishes. Everything else is like that, or like exponentially growing. And with I think a relationship, you will cling on to it even harder because you will feel like, what have I done already, or what have I not done? And then you want to be in full control of the outcomes of a relationship that you have with this person. And the difference between death is that, well, you know it is coming, whether the person is already sick or not. You know that death is eventual. So I think really the big difference is that with death, maybe it's easier to accept it because you know that it is eventual. But with a relationship, um, it's like you're trying to, if you're clinging on to a relationship, I think it's as though you're trying to control the outcomes. And the fact is, you can't control a person. You cannot control a person to be what you want them to be. And in the same way, you also cannot control death, you know? Yeah.
Thank you so much for drawing that comparison. So now that, even though I have not experienced death, I kind of understood the ideology behind the control part, which really does make sense, right? Like for myself, like I think I've hated not having control since young. I believe you have gone through the Singapore education system as well. You go to school, you just go through your geography, history, and whatever, right? You don't you have to go through it, yeah. And now that when it comes to life, when it comes to death, same thing, no control. So obviously, you feel like, why like that, But I think it takes a lot of wisdom and a lot of maturity for you to say, you know what, I'll already accept it. I think that's the hardest part.
I think acceptance is not easy, because
Yeah.
it means that you are abolishing whatever control that you have over the situation. But I think, like yourself, you read the Daily Stoic, right? And it also tells you to, be non-attached to the circumstances. And it also tells you that you are actually in full control of your life, because when you have emotional mastery, then the way you react to things is also like non-attached. You can be stoic about it. Yep. Which I think is also great. But that also doesn't mean that, when you feel sad that something bad in this sense is gonna come, it's okay to feel sad. Like, we have to also hold space for that. And the less you fight, the more you fight with, like, maybe, sadness, or the more you fight with grief or anger at a situation, like, the harder it will feel for you to accept it. One thing I learned about acceptance is that the more you resist, like, the negative emotion, the harder it is for you to accept it, So yeah, I would say, like, whatever you're doing with, in terms of, like, your mom and the relationship you have with her, you're trying your best, and that's enough. Like, in life, it's just you try your best and that's enough.
Yeah, hell yes. So for the audience right here, right now, listening to this, and who's going through like departure of the loved ones, right? What is one thing that you want to say to them?
I would say take it a day at a time. It is not easy. It's really not easy. Like, every day can be so different when your loved one's condition may change from day to day. And take it a day at a time. Do whatever that you need to do for yourself and for your loved one. It's really not easy. And I would even say that, my situation and yours could be very different. I would say keep in mind this idea of love, because for me personally, love is a really important value. And, it is also that same love that I understand can be causing you pain, but it's because you love this person. That's why the pain is valid. And really just take it a day at a time. For your loved one, I know that you will try to stay strong, and that's great. But also understand that, however you're feeling and experiencing is valid. It's not easy. So go easy on yourself too. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing this piece of advice. If those of them listening to this, they want to reach out to you, where can they find you at?
Oh, they can definitely find me on my Instagram. So my handle is KR STNWN. I think Daryl might tag me. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll most probably put it in this podcast somewhere nearby. Right,
Yeah.
somewhere near the caption or something. I'll figure that out. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time.
No worries. Thank you for letting me share. Yeah.